how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 196, Part 1, because there's a 196 Part 2. I'm releasing them both on the same day. Hopefully you'll listen to Part 1 first and then go to Part 2, because Part 2 references some things from Part 1 that obviously you have to listen to Part 1 first to understand. You know how stuff works. It's math. Athena is my guest on this episode. She came over and we talked about so much stuff. Obviously enough to make 2 episodes. I wrote down some words while I was listening back that pertain to these 2 episodes. Psychedelics, strippers, understanding, forgiveness, growth, assault, Burning Man, world traveler, indigenous women, family, religion, sexuality, partnership, men and women, love. That's a lot. A lot of stuff there. Really interesting conversation. Athena she's on a plane while I'm recording this, she went on a plane yesterday, traveling to a great adventure, and Athena's website will be launching by the end of February. I talked to her yesterday via text. She was on a plane, and they're having a little bit of a technical glitch on the website, I guess, but they are in motion and it should be up and running by the end of the month. So that will be available then. In other news, of course, social media, Hey Human Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. My personal social media is Susan Ruthism, and that is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find my website, susanruth.com. That's got my art and my music. Always good to promote that stuff. And heyhumanpodcast.com is where you're going to find links for every episode, all the information that we pack into a conversation. You can find tidbits there, books and movies and research articles and articles in general. All that kind of stuff will be there on the links page. Yeah, that's it. This is Part 1, like I said, and Part 2 is also posted. So, they're both out there for you to listen to. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Email me, susan@heyhumanpodcast.com. Let me know what you think. If you have any ideas for my 200th episode, which is coming soon, and rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Here's Athena, Part 1. Athena, welcome to Hey Human.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming over.
I'm happy to be here.
We caught you right before you leave the country.
Yes, I'm getting ready to jump to Panama.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
What are you going to do there?
Well, I'm going to go explore living with tribes. I'm going to start by going into the Darien National Park. And then there's 3 different tribes that live in the Darien. It's a park that's right on the border between Panama and Colombia. And then I am hopefully going to live with one of the tribes for a period of time and take on the woman's role. I'm a woman, so take on the woman's role and learn what it's like to live as a woman in that particular tribe. And then I'm going to go to an event called the Tribal Gathering, which is an 18-day festival that is an indigenous immersion. There'll be representatives from 90 different tribes from all over the world that come together for this one event. Aborigine, Maori, all sorts of Asian tribes, and South American, North American, all the way up to the Eskimos and the Inuits and all these representatives that come to share their knowledge.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and they share their plant medicines too.
Holy cow. How did you learn about this?
A friend of mine actually told me about it when he's like, if you're going to be down there's this really cool event you should check out. And he's never even gone, but he'd heard about it. And then I did some research online about it and read some reviews, and it sounded fascinating. And 18 days is a really long period of time to have an event. The first 14 days is indigenous immersion, where you immerse yourself in all the different workshops that the tribes have to offer. And then there's music in the evening, but again, it's indigenous, unplugged music. And the last 4 days is what I call formulaic music festival, where you have yoga classes and meditations and then DJs with loud amplified music and crazy dancing all night long.
So it was happenstance that you picked this area and that there just happened to be this big festival?
I picked the area because of the festival.
Got it. All right.
My original thought was that I was going to go to like El Salvador or Nicaragua first, and then go to Panama, and then I thought maybe Cuba, and I looked into going to Cuba, and then as my idea around living with tribes and filming myself living with tribes and that life and really telling the indigenous woman's story, then it started formulating into where are these tribes. And when I realized that there are so many different tribes that live in Panama, either on the San Blas Islands or in the Darien, and Darien is South Panama, and Northern Panama has all sorts of other tribes. I was like, there's a plethora in this one area, and it makes sense why tribal gathering is in Panama.
So exciting.
So that's why I decided to still be in Panama for a month and a half, almost 2 months. And I'm not scheduling anything after the festival. I'm leaving it open. I can go and do, if I meet some tribes and they're like, hey, come live with us. We are in...
Wherever.
Exactly. We're in Colombia. Come live with us. Then I can just go. Yeah. And I don't be like, well, I already have this plane ticket and I'm already going to go over here. And
I'm supposed to go see Batman Returns again.
Yeah, exactly.
I have tickets.
Exactly. But I'm not going to go. I'm open to whatever. And actually, that's the way I did my last trip. So 2019, when I went to Cusco, Peru to learn Spanish, that was all I had on my schedule. And to see the eclipse in La Serena, Chile. Those were the two things that I had scheduled for 2019. And everything else that I did, all of that adventure was happenstance, was opportunity, was possibility for something really cool to happen.
It's a very exciting way to live a life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Let's take you from the beginning. Where are you from?
I am a sweet Jewish girl from Corpus Christi, Texas, which means I was born in the body of Christ.
Oh, good. As we all are.
As we all are.
Deo. Or is it Dei?
So yeah, I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. And as you can guess, there are not a lot of Jews in Corpus Christi, Texas. So it was just a very small... a close-knit community. Mm-hmm. And so I sort of feel like all those kids I grew up with were brothers and sisters to me. But Corpus is a great little town. Mm-hmm. And right on the ocean, on the Gulf of Mexico.
Water towns are the best.
Hurricane Alley. Yeah. So I went through quite a number of hurricanes and...
Boarding up the house.
And seeing a fair share of tornadoes and... but it's not like an earthquake. At least with a hurricane, you know it's coming and you can pretty fairly predict where it's going to go.
And prep for it.
For the most part. Mm-hmm. Over the years of all, my 50 some odd, just shy of 50 years of living, the hurricanes have gotten exponentially worse. I'm not a meteorologist, just as a person observing hurricanes, they've gotten a lot worse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, Hurricane Allen was in 1980, and I remember sitting outside just in the rain, we were on the stoop, so it was kind of protected. We were in my dad's medical office, and we went out to where like the cars would normally drive through. And we just sat there and watched the wind and the rain and things blowing down the street. And it was bad. That was a bad hurricane. It wasn't that bad. Hurricane
Allen, to me, is such a funny... I know that they name hurricanes after people and tropical storms after people. But Allen, I feel like that's a hurricane that's wearing a pink polo shirt. You know what I mean?
It's a yuppie hurricane.
It's a yuppie hurricane. He just comes and he's like, I'm going to come through. I'd like some champagne.
I was born shortly after Hurricane Celia, which is was at the time considered the deadliest hurricane in Texas history. Mm. But the problem with Celia is it was 1970, so we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet. We didn't have a really good way of communicating with people. So the eye of the storm hit Corpus Christi. Everybody went and hid, and the hurricane happened, and then the eye of the storm hit, and it was huge. It was a huge eye. Sunny, beautiful, gorgeous still, and people came out. And they came out to the beaches because it was just stunningly gorgeous. And then the back end of the hurricane hit, and the back end is always worse than the front end. And there was a storm surge that of epic proportions. I mean, according to the newspaper articles, whatever. And a lot of people died and got washed out to sea, and houses got destroyed, and people started taking, I mean, it was a big eye. People started taking the boards off their houses. They thought everything was done, and it wasn't. And
how horrifying.
And then I was born a couple weeks later. So my mother was 9 months pregnant during this horrible hurricane, and they only boarded up one side of the house. And so the hurricane like hit that side, and then the back end of the hurricane hit and broke all the windows out because they didn't board up the whole house.
I haven't known you for very long, but it makes complete sense that you were born during a hurricane season. Totally fits you.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in Texas?
All my life. Born and raised. I didn't leave Texas until I was 24, 25 years old.
Did you go to college there?
Yeah.
And you studied criminology?
Criminal justice, yeah. I got a degree. I got a bachelor's degree in criminology. And my specialty, I mean, it wasn't like on my degree, my specialty, but most of the courses that I really got into was studying the psychology behind mass shootings and behind serial killers.
Fascinating stuff.
Super fascinating
I'm really into
stuff.
learning about that stuff.
Yeah, well, watch Mindhunter. It's really good.
Yeah, I saw Mindhunter, and then I wanted to interview who that's based on, and I reached out to his offices, and because of Mindhunter, he was just so extraordinarily busy, so he politely declined. They were very nice about it. But then it turned out that in Nashville, there's a guy who came up in the same, when all that started, came up with him. And so I interviewed him.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so I had a profiler / hostage negotiator / Dan Hodges is his name.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting episode. Chillest dude I have ever met in my life. So chill. It was unnerving almost. He was so calm. And I thought, well, I guess if you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you'd have to be. And I remember I was going to the body farm to interview a really fascinating woman about that whole, where the forensic lab, where they put the bodies out and the bodies decompose. And I don't think they like it being called the body farm, but for the life of me, I can't suddenly remember the actual name of it. And I said, any advice if I didn't know if I was going to be allowed to go out into the field. I wasn't. But he said, well, I always found Vicks Vapor Rub worked really well. You stick that in your nose, you can deal with anything. And I thought, all right, that's cool. But it didn't come to that. Dr. Donnie Steadman was that episode, and oh wow, I cried through half of it. It was such an intense experience.
I had a hard time taking forensics. I had 2 forensics classes I had to take, and that was the hardest class. I actually was going to school. I wanted to be a profiler. I wanted to go all the way through, get my PhD, and become a profiler. And by the time I got done with 4 years or 5 years of college, I was like, I'm out here. I'm going to go to California, be an actress. I'll just play one on TV. And I did. I played a forensics toxicologist on the show The Practice.
Shut up. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
What I love about you is that you have embodied so many things in your life.
God, yes.
And I love that because that's what life is for.
Yeah.
And you really are, I mean, I joke that you were born in a hurricane, but you really are this force of nature that says, I want to do that. I'm going to go do that. Without the boundaries of, whatever is in your personality. Were you always like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It
was actually, if you were to interview my mom, it would be very interesting too, because she would tell you that there was no stopping me. My parents' job was literally just to make sure the cars didn't hit me when I ran out into the street. It's not stopping me from running out into the street. It's stopping the cars. So that's what my parents, not that they literally had to do that, but that's just the analogy.
Sure, the metaphor.
For
that makes sense.
You can't stop her. You just got to let her do her thing. And I was always like that. And sometimes I did things that my parents were not happy about, but I had to do them. And prime example is when I went to college, I became a stripper because I could make a ton of money. Had a great body, make a ton of money, work in the evenings, classes during the day. It was perfect. You know, and it wasn't like something I was trying to hide. I was just talking to a friend of mine about it, and she was like, "How did you keep like your friends from knowing?" And I'm like, "Why would I keep my friends from knowing? It's more money in my pocket. If they want to give me their money, I'm not going to stop them." Mm-hmm. And I was mom to a rugby team, like the team mom, so all the guys would come into the strip club and they'd sit around the stage because they didn't have a lot of money.
Wait, that's some edible shit. You're going to see mom, we're going to go see mom strip. I love it.
And so the boys would come in and, you know, and they were all cute, in good shape.
Rugby players.
Rugby boys. Oh, so adorable. And so,
how old are you at this time?
20. Let's see, I started stripping when I was 21, 22. So 92, 3, 4, and 5. Maybe even 96.
What did the money draw you to it? Is that why? Or
money draw me to it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I had a roommate, and she, her name was Kelly, and she was like 6'4".
Whoa.
She's like super tall, long legs, blonde. She was the poster child. Actually, she was Miss Texas once. She was literally that tall, big, blonde hair poster child for what Texas looks like, with the long blue jeans and the cowboy boots, and that was Kelly. And I don't remember her last name. Anyway, she went. She's like, I'm going to go get a job. And she went down to Houston. Houston and Huntsville are a 45-minute drive from each other. So she went down there and came back at like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm asleep. And she starts jumping on my bed, throwing cash at me. Now, I'm asleep. So picture this for a moment. I'm asleep. I'm lying on a bed, and a 6'4" woman starts jumping on my bed on top of me, throwing money at me, and I'm like, what the fuck? And she's just like this towering, scary creature.
I wonder how many listeners are like, I've had that dream.
I've had that dream. That was my reality. She had a little girl, too. She had a daughter, so I was babysitting the daughter while she was going to make money. And she made a lot of money. She made like $2,000 that night. And I'm thinking, God, she can make money. I can make money. So the next night, we got a friend of ours to babysit
the
child, whose name I can't remember.
It's okay.
And it was like Paige or Penny, or it started with a P. And we went down together, and that's how I got my name Athena. Was because I went down there and they were like, well, you can't exactly strip. You can't strip by your real name, so you have to get a stage name. And my name was Carol, which isn't a good stripper name.
I don't know why I laugh every time you tell me your name was Carol, because it's so not you.
I know.
Look,
even my mother.
It just makes me laugh.
My own mother is like, yeah, you're not. You're my Carol, but you're not really a Carol. You're more of an Athena. So I went down there, and the manager, Lewis, he said, well, you look like my sister, and my sister's name is Athena, and I don't have an Athena in the club, so why don't you be Athena? And I thought, Athena's fucking badass. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can cuss, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, great, because that's just how I talk.
You get to just be you.
Great.
Welcome to the human experience.
Yay! So I became Athena, and I started stripping as Athena. Well, then all my rugby boys started calling me Athena too, because they liked the name better, and so they were calling me Athena. And I did have some college professors come into the club, but I had a rule that while I was actively enrolled in your class, I was not going to do dances for you, because I didn't want anybody to think that the A I got wasn't earned. Well, at least...
Yeah. And anybody knows you're smart as a whip, so I imagine
by classwork. And they were fine with that, but then they would come to me and say, they would come into the club and I'd be like, well, I can't dance for you. And they're like, well, but I like her. And so then I would get the girl that they wanted and sit her down and let them have conversation and do it.
So you did lap dances and stuff.
I did lap dances.
Tell me about that, because I've always wanted to ask somebody who has done that, what's that like? I imagine it's a very powerful feeling.
It's powerful. So there's two thoughts on stripping. There's this is objectification and abuse of women. And then there's the other thinking, which is this is objectification and abuse of men. I don't think it's either. But the people who don't like the strip clubs, that's what they claim.
Well, and it might be that for some people.
It might be that for some people. For the club that I was in, a lot of the girls were college students. Some of them, there was one girl working on her PhD. A few getting master's degrees. Lots of girls getting their bachelor's degrees. There's just a lot of college students working at the St. James, which is the club I worked at in Houston.
Is it still around?
It's still around. Mm-hmm. Baptist Church tried to burn it down. They had cameras up all over the parking lot, and so they caught the people. They have them on film, actually lighting the club on fire. Cars, license plates.
I don't remember that section in the Bible.
I know, wait. And then when they traced the whole thing back, they found out it was the Baptist Church down the street. And then the club got built bigger, better, more beautiful than ever. It's not the club I danced at but it's even better. But yeah, St. James was...
Hell of a steak dinner.
Actually, yes. Hell of a steak dinner.
The strip clubs I've been in, they always have the steak dinner. It makes me giggle.
And we had steak and lobster. And then we had great desserts. Our chef would win Taste of Houston year after year after year. He's one of the best chefs. We had golf tournaments where people could sign up and all the girls were caddies. And we would ride around in the golf courts in little stripper outfits. And the guys would play golf. And then
for charity?
Yeah, the money would get donated to like the Children's Hospital or some sort of charity that would be willing to accept our money. We've had charities that said, no, we don't want your money. I'm like, really? We're here to help.
Everybody's entitled to their,
Like,
so,
okay.
All right, so you're in.
So that's how I became Athena.
Okay, and you're in. Tell me about the lap dancing, because I am curious.
Oh, lap dancing. So, lap dancing is how you make money quicker, because one song is $20. I wonder if it's gone up. I just had that thought. I'm like, it was $20.
Inflations? That's a new word. Inflation, I'm sure.
Well, but I don't know. I mean, $20 is so simple to just hand over 20. I wonder if it has. But so one song being about 5 minutes long. So you could earn, what is that? 5 minutes, you'd get $200 in an hour. Is that right? No. $400 in an hour. So I could make $400 an hour. So if I had a guy that just wanted me to dance song after song after song, sometimes I would just, like $400 in an hour. Here you go. And they'd hand me $400 and I'd dance for an hour. Knowing
that they were likely being brought to orgasm in some cases, was that ever weird?
I've actually never had a guy have an orgasm while I danced. Is that only in the movies? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard of it happening. I don't think I've actually ever heard of it happening firsthand. I think that really only happens in the movies. Yeah, I think you need two hands. But yeah, I've never had a guy orgasm while I was lap dancing for him. I've had guys get really turned on. I've had guys tell me to stop because I was getting close. But I've never had a guy be like, I need a napkin. Like, I've never had that happen. I was making anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a night. Just lap dancing with my bottoms on. I didn't like dancing nude. It just wigged me out. I'm like, I don't want my naked cooch on a pole that somebody else's naked cooch was on.
I mean,
you clean it, and I get it. You spray with alcohol, and you clean it, and I get it. It was just still...
It wasn't your thing.
Wasn't my thing. And you're not allowed to drink alcohol in nude clubs. So money flows freer when there's alcohol. So I could make more money. And in Texas, they could accept credit cards for dances. So they would hand over their credit card for their meals and their drinks and their dances. And we would take a match book and you would do a dance and I'd fold a match. You do a dance, I'd fold another match. And then I would show how many matches and I'd tell the waitress and she would write it up. The most I ever saw anybody charge on a credit card was $15,000 on a corporate card. And it was 3 guys, and they were doing business, and it was a corporate expense. And it was dances.
Just like the movies.
And dances and cognac and cigars, and just like the movies. It was dances, cognac, cigars, and steak. And they had a great night. But plenty of people, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on their credit card.
And it was the Baptist church.
It was the Baptist church. Lots of politicians, lots of used car salesmen. One of my regular clients was a used car salesman. I will say I actually made most of my money not dancing. Most of the money I made was just sitting with guys, sharing a meal, talking. If I'm going to sit at your table for song after song after song, you still have to pay me for those songs. Because I could be dancing somewhere else.
Well, I mean, there you are. The bottom line is companionship.
Yeah.
Everyone.
The bottom line is companionship.
Seeking a friend for the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes these guys had no social skills. Like I had one client, I loved this guy. He was the epitome of a sweet human being. And I really hope that his life had turned into something wonderful with a wonderful partner and woman in his life and kids and everything he ever wanted. But zero social skills. He was a computer programmer for a company called Soft Image. Soft Image is now Microsoft. But this was before Microsoft existed. This is Texas during the oil tech boom. This was stupid, ridiculous money flowing at an amazing rate in the early 90s in Houston. The oil boom was at its height, and our tech boom, Texas Instruments and Soft Image, and both of those companies will equidistant away from the St. James, which was in the middle.
Soft Image sounds like a soft porn star name.
Soft Image.
Yeah.
But they pronounce it Soft Image.
Yeah, sure.
Remember the Chevron commercials with the dancing cars? He did the programming on that. So...
how many married to not married, or did people take their rings off? I assume there's probably a nice handful of...
I would assume 50-50, but we had a lot of people come in with their wives.
Sure, absolutely.
And I loved sitting with guys with their wives.
Yeah, a lot of my girlfriends go with their boyfriends, or girlfriends go with their girlfriends, or, that kind of thing.
If I saw a couple come in, I beeline to that table. Because then I get to dance for the woman, which was so much more fun than dancing with the guys. And the guys always loved watching their woman get a lap dance over and over and over again. And then I would have this great conversation with them. I had a client who was a VP at a oil company, gas company, Texaco. And he used to come in with his wife all the time. I'm just not going to say names.
No, of course not.
He used to come in with his wife all the time. And at one point in time, they asked if I would go on vacation with them. Well, it was a conference that he had to go to, and she was going too. And they asked if I would go because then she wouldn't be lonely. And I'm like, well, aren't there like other wives that are going? And they're like, yeah, but I don't like any of them. They're all catty and they just want to go shopping, and I want to go on adventures, and you seem really cool. And would you come with us? And ultimately, I said no.
That doesn't sound like you.
I know. Well, we had a girl disappear out of our club about a year earlier. And there are the stories of the girls that go on vacations with their clients and then you never see them again. And this was out of the country.
That makes sense. So your common sense popped up.
So I was like, oh, you're really great. You're also super fucking powerful. And I'm just a 20-something stripper. So I don't know. And I told them I'd think about it, and I talked to some of the other girls, and they were like, don't do it. And then I ended up not doing it. And I always wonder in my head, wonder what would have happened if I had gone.
Do you remember the name of the girl that vanished, by any chance?
Stripper name.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
I don't know what her real name is.
Sure.
Beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, Aurora. Went on vacation with a client. I never saw her again.
And there's no recourse, I guess.
For what? Don't know who the client is? Don't know who the,
Yeah.
I don't know who her family is. Don't know who to contact. Don't know anything about her personal life.
That's a great playground for a bird of prey.
Yes. Strip clubs and prostitutes are a great source for
Sex workers, yeah.
Yeah.
They get
Yeah. Big time. But I was just trying to play it as smart as possible. I was arrested in the club. Yes.
For?
Public indecency. I'm in a fucking strip club. I got arrested for public indecency. They raided it. They raided the club. They took out 12 girls. I was one of the 12, one of the dirty dozen, we called ourselves, on Christmas Eve because they're fucking assholes.
That is such a movie.
And Vice has nothing better to do on Christmas Eve. Yeah. They can't even be with their own fucking families. They have to come in and raid our club midnight on Christmas Eve. Fuck you. The only people that are in the club are the loneliest people on earth. Mm. And this is what you're going to do. There were 6 officers that came into the club to get dances earlier in the evening. And then they came in at midnight and they raided the club and they took 12 of us in a paddy wagon. And then we all had to spend Christmas in jail because there isn't a judge on the face of this earth that would hear our case.
Did you get bailed out by your parents?
No. No, I called my brother-in-law, who's an attorney, very high-powered attorney in Houston. So I called him, but there was nothing, like there was no bail set. There was nothing until the judge came in on Monday. And this was Christmas Eve Friday. Saturday was Christmas, and it was a Saturday. Sunday, jack shit happens in Texas on a Sunday. So we had to wait till Monday morning.
I'm glad y'all were together at least.
We were together, and all the girls, and I was getting ready to graduate. So all the girls were clinging on to me. There was at one point in time I was sitting on a table with my back up against the wall, and the girls were on the bench seats, and everyone had an arm on me in some way to stay connected, and we were all... And then there was a woman in the holding cell that had stabbed her husband to death. There was an open pit toilet that was just disgusting. And they fed us white bread with bologna and American cheese 3 meals a day.
Ugh.
That's all we got. And a cup of water.
Did you talk to the lady that stabbed her husband?
We tried. She only spoke Spanish. One of our girls spoke a little bit of Spanish. So that's how we got that's what she did. He beat her silly. He was beating her silly. And she went completely crazy because that's what happens. You go from silly to crazy, and stabbed him to death. Mm-hmm. And her only regret is that their son saw it.
Oh, boy. Oof.
So he watched it go down. So now her son is with... Protective Services, Child Protective Services, and she's stuck in this cell, and it was Christmas Eve, and she lost her shit when he came home drunk and blah, blah, it was typical story. He came home drunk, Christmas Eve, started fucking up all the gifts, the son is crying, I don't know how old the son was, son is crying, he slaps her around a few times, she can't take it anymore, goes into the kitchen, grabs a knife, and stabs him. Multiple times.
I was on the tram or whatever coming back from the airport last night, and everybody's tired. It's 11:30 at night, and there is a woman, Latina woman, and her son who's probably 4, maybe adorable. Excuse me. And then a man, a white guy, standing young, wearing one of those what do you call it? Sort of the ponchos that are made out of the fabric that have the stripes across.
Yeah.
You see him on the beach for sale and stuff. Anyway, he was staying there, and he had a wedding ring on him. I wasn't sure if they were all together because he wasn't engaging in them at all. And the little boy is just locked on mom. And she's trying to make him laugh. She's got his big dragon in her arms, and he keeps kicking off his shoe, and she's like, "You're gonna lose your shoe!" And then he'd put it back on and giggle, and she touched her foot to his foot. And I was watching this engagement thinking, God, this is so cute, but there's something also weirdly tragic about it, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but it had this feeling of sadness. And I kept looking at the man standing, who didn't really look like he was with them, and I thought, I wonder... And then the guy that was sitting next to the woman stood up and got off for his thing, and the man sat down, or the young man sat down next to her. And the look on the boy's face when he looked at this man who was clearly not dad, there was this look in his eye like he this eggshell look, and then back at mom and just focused on mom, and mom's trying to make him laugh and all this, and I could see the whole story playing out, like I see like what that whole thing is. She's married to this guy who is not kind to the child and likely not to her, and she's spending all this energy on this child, rightfully so, to protect him and keep him in this world of dragons and love, and that no matter what's going on outside of that bubble. And fuck, it was a lot to see, pretty wild. And then they got off on their stop, and I just said a little prayer for that little boy. Life.
Well, there were plenty of girls in my club who were single moms trying to make ends meet. There were girls in my club who were drug addicts trying to make ends meet. And then there were lots of college students.
Did you do any of that, the drugs or alcohol?
I didn't do, I smoked a little pot when I was in college. I tried cocaine once and ended up being so annoying to myself and everyone around me that my friends tied me to the tree outside my house. They tied my back to the tree and they sat me down and they're like, you're going to stay there. We're going to check on you. And and they did, they would come out. It was my house. It was my fucking house. But everyone, they had cocaine and they were like, oh, let's do a little. And I did a little bump up each nostril. And then it was like, I don't like that feeling. And then I'm already, as you can tell, hyperactive. So it just made that worse. And then any semblance of a filter I might have had disappeared, and I would tell you everything that was wrong with you and why and how you should fix yourself. And they realized that if I was
good, great quality.
They were like, if you're going to have any friends by the end of this evening, we need to pull you out of this party. So I love those guys. And they did. They pulled me out of the party and they tied me to a tree and they brought me water and they would check on me and they'd be like, nope, you're still a bitch. We're going to go back inside. And then one of the girls would come out and they'd be like, so are you hungry? Do you want something to eat? And I'd be like, you shouldn't wear your hair like that. They're like, nope, you're still a bitch. We're going to go back inside. And I knew I was doing it and there was nothing I could do. I was like a little voice inside my head.
Went home.
It was like the movie Get Out, where like I was like this little creature in the back of my head. No, don't say those things. And then my mouth was being controlled by somebody else. Yeah. I've never done cocaine since. I did it once. I've never done cocaine
for the good of mankind.
For all the good of humankind. Never going to do cocaine again. But it also made me very, very sick. So the next day I had horrible diarrhea and just stomach problems. And my friends are like, well, if you did it more often, your body wouldn't react that way. Same thing happened with cigarettes, too. I smoked a cigarette, like 3 puffs in, I projectile vomit across the room like The Exorcist. And my friend's like, oh, that sometimes happens. You just got to keep doing it till you get used to it. And I'm like looking at this vomit I now have to clean up, thinking, no. I'm not going to keep trying that. So 1 cigarette in my entire life, 2 bumps of Coke, 1 up each nostril in my entire life. Both made me horribly sick and a horrible person. I just was like, no.
And you're not really a drinker either.
No, I mean.
Are you sober or are you just
I'm not sober. I mean, I'll have a sip every now and then, but I'm such a lightweight. And
you're about 4 pounds anyway. You're a tiny person.
I'm a tiny person. Yeah. I'm a tiny person. I'm very petite. I've always been very, very petite, except for my ass. Got that. Spades. In fact, it looks like a spade. So, yeah, I'm not a drinker now. When I was in college, I could put away a pony keg by myself. Which for me is a lot of beer. It's like a normal person putting away.
You were the size of a pony keg, so yeah, that's a lot for. Yeah.
So I did my fair share of drinking. I love whiskey sours, and I was in college. So smoking pot, drinking, that was mainly what it was. I was in Texas, so certain things were really easy to get, like mushrooms. So you just walk out into a cattle field, you get your mushrooms, you dry them, you boil them, you drink it. And that was like a Saturday. It was like I didn't even realize mushrooms were illegal until I got to California. I have a degree in criminal justice. It didn't occur to me that mushrooms were illegal until I got to California and I had to buy them. And the person I was buying them from was like, all like a drug
Sketchy,
dealer.
yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Holy shit. These things are illegal. They grow in shit. They're just there. Why is that illegal? I still don't actually understand why mushrooms are illegal.
They're not really now. And they're starting to use them in
medicine.
helping medicine. Yeah.
They're huge. They're phenomenal.
They also at one point weren't, and then they were.
Well, in Oakland they're legal. That's the first place that decriminalized them.
Yeah.
And now I think there's a bill for the state of California to decriminalize.
Things will catch up eventually to where the shaman have been for many millennia. Where did you go after all of what was next? When did you leave Texas then?
I left Texas. Well, so I kind of left Texas twice. So right after high school, I moved to Austin, failed out of the University of Texas because I was too busy partying. My apartment backed up to a fraternity house, and so I could go out my back window and into their pool. So I spent a lot of time in their pool, and then I could crawl back through my bedroom window to get back home. It's a crazy place to live as a freshman in college. So I failed out, and then I shacked up with a boyfriend, and we ended up moving out to Lake Elsinore and lived with his mother. It's a horrible decision. So I spent a year in Lake Elsinore and Paris and that whole sort of weird, bizarre section.
Paris, Texas, yeah.
No, Paris, California.
Oh, Paris, California.
Lake Elsinore in Paris, California.
Okay.
Yeah, which is also a very odd part of California. And Menifee, and that didn't last very long. And then I moved back to Texas and back to Corpus Christi and continued with my college there. And then I had a boyfriend rape me and try to kill me and threaten to kill me, and it was like this whole big thing, and I couldn't get any legal help because he was claiming that I was into rough sex. I was claiming I was raped. The judge decided to believe him over me. It was,
what year was that?
1990.
Yeah, okay.
And I couldn't even get a restraining order against him. And then he started doing crazy things like leaving messages on my voicemail, which is a tape that was, I'm going to kill you, chop you up into a million pieces, and spread you all over the freeway so no one will be able to find all of you. But he would mask his voice. So you couldn't tell it was him. He was doing it from a payphone, so there was no way to prove that it was him. But every single time I would call the police and make a report. And then I would say it was him. And they'd be like, well, you can't prove that. He left a butcher knife in my door with a note, a bloody note, had blood on it that said, "You're next." He slashed the tires in my car and the windows of my car.
Forensic science wasn't really where it was just on the forefront of things.
It was just on the forefront of things, and
a lot botched.
And to be honest, the legal system wasn't even taking any of it seriously. They really weren't. They're like, okay, we're taking another report. Oh, she called us again, taking another report. But they weren't taking it seriously. And there weren't like security cams I could put up.
And you had broken up with him at this point?
I broke up with him. So I broke up with him over the phone. And that night, he came to my house banging on the door saying, I have to talk to you. I have to talk to you. I'm like, well, let's talk through the door. And he's like, no, come on. And I'm like, just grab your stuff and go. And I broke up with him because I caught him in several unforgivable lies. And so finally I put the chain on the door because he was like, just let us talk through the door. And so I opened the door for the chain, and he was a big guy, 6'4", 6'2", something like that. And he busted the door open, broke the hinges, threw me to the floor. We started wrestling and fighting. He's like, I just want to talk to you. And he picks me up and throws me down and then grabs the phone cable out of the wall and hog ties me. And then at that point, I was like, I need to stop fighting or I'm going to get seriously fucking hurt. So then I'm like hogtied, lying on my side on the couch while he's talking to me. I have no fucking idea what he said. Even the judge and the attorneys and all this stuff, when I talked to him, was like, what did he say to you? I'm like, I have no recollection.
Did you not show the...
Oh, I had marks on my wrists.
Yeah.
I had fingerprint bruises on my neck.
But he's just saying, oh, she likes it rough.
Uh-huh. I had
he raped you that night?
Yeah, he raped me that night. I had a full slap mark on my face. I had bruises on my thighs. I had bruises on my ankles. I had marks where the phone cable was on my ankle. I had marks fucking all over the place. Photographs, blah, 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 blah. The judge decided that it was he said, she said, and I'm into rough sex, and I had remorse. So he wasn't going to take down John.
Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. But he was a psychopath. He was an actual psychopath. And, you know, after the, like he would slash a tire and I would, you know, go and get it replaced. And then he would slash a different tire.
Did you know it was him that doing that?
It was either him or a friend of his.
But this was that night?
No, this is all post.
So leading up to that night?
Leading up to that night.
This is a thing that I think is so important to say.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of times, first of all, there's a lot of victim blaming.
Right.
And rape and abuse and all that stuff. And here you are with a degree in these kinds of people, and you still end up with...
So I went and got my degree because of this incident that happened to me.
Okay, well, all right.
So the incident happened to me. So let me do this, the timeline.
I do want to say that, just for anyone listening, that it is... Because I've dated a couple psychos. Not that level of psycho, but pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And you don't really know. They gaslight
you
the
don't
fuck
know.
out of you.
He gaslighted the fuck out of me. He gaslighted the fuck out of my parents. My parents loved him.
Yeah, we're smart women. And
he was charming and big and muscular and talked a really good talk about how he wanted to take care of me. And in every way that I admired my father, he became those things. And
how did you meet him?
College.
Yeah.
We were in a college class together. Mm-hmm. This was in Corpus Christi, Texas. So I had moved to Lake Elsinore and then moved back. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved back is when I met John. And that ended up not being his real name. It was weird. He was enrolled in college as John.
But he
turned out, and I'll get to that part of the story, when he finally did end up going to prison, they found out that wasn't his name at all.
Did you send him to prison?
I did not. Unfortunately, somebody else did that was connected to me. So this is a crazy story. So I've moved back to Corpus Christi from California. It's 1990, 91, something like that. And I'm in different classes, and I meet him in one class, and he asks me out, and we start dating. And he just seems like a really great guy who's got his shit together. He's getting a business degree. He's got all these wonderful ideas. His mother is a real estate agent, and a very good one in town. And his mother's really sweet. And my parents like him, and my dad likes taking him out on the ranch. I grew up in Corpus Christi, but we also had a ranch like 30 minutes outside of town. And so I grew up with horses and cattle and whatever. And so everything seemed great. And then John had contacted me to say that he needed some money because his mother was arrested and all the charges were false, but he needed to bail her out and he didn't have the money. And then as soon as everything got situated, that he would be able to pay me back. And I was like, well, okay. But something in me, and I don't know what, made me call the police station. Corpus Christi is not that big. To find out if she was arrested and what the charges were. Because I kept saying, what are the charges? And he goes, I don't know. It was something ridiculous, but I don't know. So I called so I said, okay, well, I don't personally have the money. I have to call my dad, so give me some time. And I called the police station. And according to the name that I knew his mother to have, she hadn't been arrested. No woman by that name had been arrested. No woman by that name had ever been arrested. So I was like, well, this is kind of strange. And so I explained the situation that my boyfriend told me he needs money to bail his mother out. And this is the woman's name. She's a real estate agent. These are her billboards, blah, 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 blah. And the guy behind the desk says, oh, that woman. Well, that woman has for fraud several times. I was like, what? He goes, and her name isn't whatever it was. I was like, well, that's fucked up. So I called John back. And I'm like, so I just got off the phone with the police station, and they said that your mother wasn't arrested, nor is that her name. She has been arrested before, but for fraud. And I can't help you with that if she's in jail for fraud. Like, I'm not going to give you bail money, and you're lying to me. And then we got into this big argument on the phone, and how dare you call the police station? You don't trust me.
How dare you challenge me on my lie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we got into this big argument, and I said, I'm done. I'm done with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Like, this is not okay. I'm not okay with lying, blah, blah, blah. And I said, we're through. We're done. I'm going to pack up your things, put it in a bag. It'll be outside my door. Come get it. Don't ever call me again. And I hung up the phone, and it just kept ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing, and I wouldn't answer it. And that's when he came to my door and showed up, and banging on my door. And it was late at night, and it was, I'm in an apartment complex, and I didn't, I was like, shh, calm down. And he wouldn't stop, and we're talking through the door. And then I finally put the chain on and opened the door, and he busts it in.
And at this point, you probably aren't. Had he exhibited any?
Nothing.
Abuse?
He's never been violent to me.
So your
never
thought to call the police or anything didn't cross your mind because he's just pissed.
He's pissed. He doesn't want me to break up with him, and he's trying to back channel the lie. And he told me that his mother called him from prison or from jail, and that's why he was calling me. That it was his mother who was lying. It wasn't him.
Mm-hmm. Gaslight.
I was like, okay, well, whether it's your mother or you, I don't want to have anything to do with either one of you. And that's when the whole incident happened, where he hogtied me, and it's not easy to hogtie a hog, let alone a person, but he was so much bigger than me and would sit on me.
Well, again, I'd like to reiterate that you are tiny.
I am. I'm 5 feet tall, and at the time I weighed 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. And he could easily just pick me up and move me around. And then he sat on me. He physically sat on me, and I couldn't breathe. And then, I'm tied up, and for those who don't know what hog tying is, it's when your ankles are tied together and your wrists are tied together behind your back, and then your wrists and your ankles are tied together. Mm-hmm. So it's in a position that's uncomfortable for your shoulders and your hips, to the point where they'll pop out of the socket. And he did pop my left shoulder slightly out of the socket doing that. So then, after talking for a period of time and me trying to figure out how to get out of this horrible situation, he informs me that he is going to have sex with me again. And he said he wanted one more time, and I said no. And he goes, that's not your choice. And he picked me up, threw me over his shoulder, took me into the bedroom, untied my ankles, and raped me. And there's really nothing I could do about it. I had a partially dislocated left shoulder. I was in a state of shock.
You're tied up.
Tied up. I don't...
He weighs 3 times as much as you.
Don't actually fully, even to this day, remember like everything that went down at that point.
I'm
like
sure
once he picked me up and carried me into the bedroom,
then your brain went into protection mode. Yeah.
So it was.
I'm sorry that happened. Just, that's like the worst thing a person could say, but it's the only thing.
Yeah.
To say. It's just like, fuck. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah. Yeah. He did end up going to prison. So because of that rape, I got pregnant. And so a few weeks later, and I'm dealing with the legal stuff, and he's, knife and door slashing, tires. Never slashed anything I did new, which was weird. Like, he would break a window, and I would get it fixed, and he would break a different window. And I would get it fixed, he'd break it. I ended up with 4 new tires and all new windows on my car.
What the fuck?
He's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like even the officers would be like, well, at least he's not breaking the new ones, but that's a little fucked up. Like, he would break a window in my apartment.
So they know he's doing it, but they can't do anything? Like,
there's no way to prove that it was him.
Yeah.
Or,
I've had that experience with police officers where they say, we know who this person is, but we can't do anything about it. Unless you physically saw them do it, or somebody else that's not you saw them do it.
My very first boyfriend in high school, came to my rescue. He was my fucking hero. He and his D&D friends all took this on as like it's almost like a game, but it was protect Carol. And one would sleep in my car with a camera. They were all just, the job was just get a picture of him doing it or who's doing it. So they would sleep in my car with a camera, and there's no fucking cell phones or internet, or there's no webcams. There's no
street cameras.
There's no street cameras.
And now everything is...
The apartment complex had no cameras. It was you would have to, the amount of money it would take to hardwire in a security system just to catch this guy slashing my tires wasn't going to happen. So... one guy would, my original boyfriend, he would sleep in my apartment on the couch, and he would have a camera, and then somebody would be in their own car across the street, and they would have a camera, and everyone was just trying to catch him. And only like a handful, like literally 5 people knew that when I figured out that I was pregnant, and I was about 4 or 5 weeks in when we figured it out, knew. And my college professor, I had told the whole story to. I was taking a sociology class that was Criminal Justice 101, just to fulfill sociology. And I went to him because it was criminal justice, and I'm like, this is what's going on with me. This is the whole situation, and I don't know what to do, and my grades were slipping, and blah, blah, blah. And he just looked at me, and he goes, you need to leave town. The law's not going to protect you.
And meanwhile, you probably got some serious PTSD and...
Unbelievable. And he said,
just talking about this right now, nobody can see this but me, but the whole top of your... I mean, I know you've done massive work and all that.
It's all getting red.
It's all getting red.
Yeah.
The whole top of your chest is getting red. Yeah. I've been watching it change color as you're talking.
And I'm fidgeting and I'm antsy.
It's a fucking lot. I mean...
It's a lot. It's a lot to go through. I ran for my life. I couldn't even tell my parents where I was going. I didn't know who to trust.
Where did you go?
Huntsville, Texas. So that college professor said, I have friends that teach up in Huntsville. You have an aptitude for criminal justice, and I think it would help you mentally to continue studying. You can go there tomorrow, pack up all your things, get in a car, go up to Huntsville. It would have been a 6-hour drive, and you can start school on Monday. I think this was like a Wednesday.
He helped you pull some strings to get in.
He pulled all the strings up at Sam Houston State. I didn't even go through admissions. I just showed up, signed the paperwork for my loan, and started school up there.
It's Angel.
And got me into a dormitory, and...
Not all heroes wear capes. Nope. Some wear the leather elbow patches.
I know. He was great. He was just my amazing savior, and he would call me every once in a while. Once I got up there, I gave him my phone number when I was up there, and he would call me every once in a while to ask me how I was doing. I was able to do a protective order, not a restraining order. So the campus police knew about him and photographs and everything just in case he came looking for me.
Did he?
He did, but he didn't come looking for me. Now, this is the psychopath situation. He kidnapped a friend of mine that we looked a lot alike, like we could have been sisters. And when I left and disappeared, all I did, because I realized there was somebody because he found out I was pregnant, and only 5 people knew. So it was one of those 5. There was a mole, and I didn't know who it was. So I just told those people that I was getting out of my apartment. I was going to go stay with a friend until I could figure out a safe place to go, because he knew where I lived. I had to get out of there. Well, what I did was drive up to Huntsville. Renee, my savior and my hero, drove with me up, moved all my stuff, drove with me up to Huntsville, and made sure I was safe up there. I knew it wasn't him. He was protecting me. If it was him, that would have been the most fucked up mole.
The teacher, you mean?
No, he was my first boyfriend. He was the one that was sleeping on my couch with a camera and got all of his friends to try to catch this guy on camera. We never did. Mm-hmm. We all knew it was him. So he moved me up, and all of a sudden, one of my friends gets kidnapped. John broke into her apartment, breaking and entering, stole her gun, theft of a firearm, when she got home, kidnapped her at gunpoint, kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, calling her by my name, and forced her into her car, Grand Theft Auto, and said, I'm going to make you have the babies. And I was pregnant with twins. And so few people knew that. But I had one of my best friend in the world, my girlfriend best friend in the world, had a crush on him and told him everything.
How can you have it? See, this is the thing when people say, how do people marry Ted Bundy in prison? Or how do people, Charles Manson send him love letters and this kind of stuff? It's like, yeah, it's so nutty to me.
So the girl that he, it's so funny, I can't remember her name, but the girl that he kidnapped, they were driving, and somewhere between Corpus Christi and Houston, she saw a sheriff's car and pushed him off the side of the road, jumps out of the car screaming, he's got a gun, he's got a gun.
Grab the steering wheel, you mean?
She was driving.
She was driving
in
her car. Yeah, got it.
In her own car, and he had a gun, gun at her side.
Fuck.
Drive. And she realized she'd rather die than be with this guy. Kidnapped.
And whatever fate would befall her.
So she, somehow steered her car into the sheriff's car and forced him off the road and jumps out of the car screaming he's got a gun. All of this was in the newspaper, the whole story, which is how I know it. And John gets out of the car, puts the gun down on top of the car and walks up to the cop with his arms out like, go ahead, fucking arrest me. I don't fucking care. And he gets arrested. And those were his 5
Is he
charges.
Still in jail?
No. Mm-mm. And he ends up in a fucking prison in Huntsville, where I'm going to school. I mean, to be fair, most of the prisons are in Huntsville, but there's 13. When I was going to school, there were 13 prisons, 9 state and 4 federal in Huntsville, Texas. And he ended up in one of them. But in Texas, they separate the sex offenders from the other offenders because sex offenders are their own special thing. And if you put them in general population, they won't survive. He was in general population because none of those 5 charges was a sexual offense. But he raped me, and I'm now going to school with a whole bunch of prison guards because there was a work-study program where you could get a job as a prison guard in exchange for your college tuition. So all the people in my class, all the guys are, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are prison guards. And I'm telling this story of this horrible thing that happened to me, and that's how I ended up in Huntsville. Why are you in Huntsville? How come you got to start school just like that? And and I tell this whole story, and I have the campus police has my protective order, and and this is what the guy looks like. If you see him, let me know, blah, blah. So one day, I'm in class, huge lecture class, probably 150, 200 people in this class. And I'm off to the side in the middle, and I'm just listening to the class. And like 4 guys come and sit down around me. A couple of them I knew. And one guy that I knew sits down next to me and leans over. And he goes, "You're a guy? Just want you to know just desserts was served." And then the 4 guys get up and walk out. And this was like a year and a half into me going to school there. It wasn't immediate. And I was just, it was like, I still to this day have no idea. I have no idea what they did to him.
Do you know his real, can you look up to see
what his real name was? It was in the newspaper.
Yeah, but was there any way to, you probably just didn't want to know, but.
I don't remember it now. It was published in the newspaper.
No, I don't mean his name. I mean whatever befell him.
Oh, whatever befell him?
What they did to him, I wonder.
I mean...
Who knows? Do you know?
I don't know. To this day, I don't know what befell him. He didn't die. They didn't kill him. I had already moved to California, maybe a couple years, and my mother sent me a news article that he had been released. He got 10 years, and I think he only served maybe 7.5 or 8 of it. And then I got really scared because I'm an actress in California and Hollywood, and I'm trying to make it and be on a TV show or a commercial, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I had changed my name legally, so it's not like he could find me by my old name, but now he could just see me on a movie screen and find me. So then I started getting a little scared because he was free and clear and open, and So, yeah, I don't know what befell him. I'm assuming he was gang raped.
I'm assuming that too.
I'm assuming that's what happened to him, but I never asked. I saw those guys again. I mean, I had another 2.5 years of school to go through.
How did you deal with the pregnancy and the re-traumatization of your body?
I had an abortion. There was no way I was going to splice my DNA with that psychopath.
No, obviously, clearly. But what I'm asking is, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer decision, but how was that for you because you've already been bodily traumatized.
Yes.
Emotionally traumatized. So, now you have to go through this other traumatic thing.
Yeah. It was a constant state of numb. It literally for a year, maybe 2. It was like I wasn't attached to my body. It was literally like a state of numb. I couldn't be in relationships. I wouldn't have sex with anyone. I wouldn't, I surrounded myself though with really amazing men, like the rugby team or the prison guards, or I always found my knights in shining armor. Like I always had a round table, like it was befitting for me to get named Athena, because I always ended up at that point, I always had an army around me that worshipped me, that protected me. Like tiny little Athena is going to always have all these amazing, incredible men.
It's wild to think that here you were in ownership of your body as a stripper.
Right.
And then to have that ownership.
So the stripper came after.
Oh.
I didn't become a stripper until I started school at Sam Houston State.
Okay.
And that was 91, so 92. So maybe a semester later. After starting there, then I became a stripper.
Okay, let's talk about that unpack that a second. You then, backwards, you had your body taken from you, and now you're, trying to reclaim it? Is that sort of what drew you to it?
It was literally just money. It was literally just money. I'm like, you made $2,000 in a night, and I was working at a dollar store shelving crap for people to buy.
But for minimum wage. You must have been, you said it was fun to be a stripper.
It was super fun.
Yeah, but
I was a little kid that liked performing. I did all the little musical theater and stuff like that. But I'm thinking of how, you're talking about being disassociated from your body, and then so many, I think to be empowered enough to get up on a stage and be naked and be like, this is me and all that. That's the one variable. And then there's this other variable where there are a lot of women who have been violated and sexually assaulted that end up as strippers and sex workers and stuff like that. And it's weird because it almost sounds like you're sort of in the middle of that. Yeah.
You know?
It is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
I can't explain it. It literally was just money. I didn't want to work for minimum wage shelving shit for the dollar store.
But was there a feeling of power, taking your power back? I mean,
maybe
you're not having to have sex with these people, but you know what I mean? That I'm fascinated by this stuff. So,
well, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't sexual. I never saw stripping as sexual.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you have a power over your body being non-sexual, but you're performing this act where other people are
perceiving it as sexual.
Sexualization. Yeah. It's just fascinating.
And it just wasn't. Yeah. But I find that happens to me now, where like just how I dress or the way I hold myself, my composure.
Or your Instagram, you get a lot of nakedness.
I got a lot of nakedness on my Instagram. That's more of
the Tushy Tuesdays.
That's an ends to a means. I mean, it's I have a great ass. I was blessed DNA wise to, it's a combination. So from the waist up, I am my mother's DNA. And from the waist down, I am my father's DNA, except for, of course, that one little
spot.
But my hips, I inherited from my dad's side of the family, and my tiny rib cage and tiny waist I inherited from my mother.
You're built like a Kardashian, but you didn't have to pay any money for it.
Yes. I
I
actually think I'm built better than the Kardashians. That's not.
I meant the butt part, because they have
I am a walking Gaston Lachey. I am Henry Moore. I am Robert Graham. Although he did more muscular pieces, but I actually worked with Graham.
You have a very feminine. You're very feminine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. For sure.
So it's a DNA crapshoot, and I won that one. So
well, you're also beautiful.
Thank you.
For sure. And your hair is incredible.
Yeah, again, it's DNA.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not doing anything to make it look like this.
Yeah,
I have natural silver, gunmetal gray hair.
Yeah, silver gray. That's just lovely. And you started going gray at an early age?
25. And I dyed my hair from 25 to 38, and then I stopped dyeing my hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. How did you extricate yourself from all that trauma?
So there was, at my university, at Sam Houston State, there was a group meeting for victims of crimes. And my school counselor recommended that I attend. And I attended quite a number of gatherings. And it was almost always women. Every once in a while there'd be a guy that would show up that was molested or abused as a child. But for the most part, it was all women. And whenever a guy did show up, all the women were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because it's one thing for a woman to be abused as a child or otherwise. And I'm not saying that any abuse is good. I'm not saying that. But in Texas, to have your masculinity stripped from you as a child is worse than if it happened to a little girl. It's all bad. It's all bad.
I get what you're saying.
And it's all wrong.
Yeah.
So when the guys would show up, it would be like all the women would all of a sudden be like, okay, what happened to me wasn't nearly as bad as what happened to you. And I realized...
Isn't it funny how we do that with traumas? We do that, we're like, oh, your trauma is better or worse than mine,
yeah.
Which is insane.
And that's what I ended up doing.
It's all horrible.
What happened to a lot of these women made me realize I had an incident in my life. This one guy, one time, one thing, like there was all the added fear, what drove me to Huntsville. I get that. But some of these women, you know, just from the time that they were 6 years old, had been penetrated by somebody and abused and had their body robbed, their childhood robbed of them. I had a fucking amazing childhood. I mean, my parents were married 57 years. They loved each other. They loved every day they were together. They loved me. I have 3 phenomenal siblings that are incredible and loving, and we all get along, and none of us hate each other. We don't have any of this, I'm not talking to him ever again. I don't know, I can't tell you. It was like almost all my friends have someone they're not talking to anymore. It's like in their family. I didn't have any of that. I grew up with like 2 homes, but it was both of our homes. We had the city house and we had the ranch house. I had horses. I got to play with cows. I had all this acreage that I could wander around at and explore and learn, and I could get hurt, and you know, it was okay, and I could eat mud pies and everything was fine. I learned how to water ski. It was like blessed fucking childhood. And I had a psychopath in my life. And that's what I came to terms with, is that incident isn't me.
It didn't define you.
It doesn't define me. It's not my identity. It's not who I am. That's who he is. That's a reflection on him. He is a psychopath. I learned, maybe I got into the crime serial world, studying it, because what makes someone's brain do that? Why does your brain say that's okay to you?
And all the different levels of psychopathy. There's between the narcissists and the sociopaths and just the plain old gaslighting boyfriend, girlfriend, the
manipulator and the passive aggressive and the liar, and then the liars that lie psychopath.
So much they believe their own lies.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have this guy John, who is or whatever the fuck his name is, who's a complete psychopath. Delusional psychopath. I found out later that he was like one of these kids that hurt animals, hurt pets.
It's a big red flag.
Yeah, huge red flag.
I just started watching the Netflix series Don't Fuck with Cats.
Oh, I heard about that.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know if I can watch that. There are certain shows like I almost
but
didn't watch Mindhunter for that sort of that.
I mean,
same,
it makes sense. Yeah.
Same reason, but yeah. So, but I finished school, and it took me 5 years to finish college, and I did. And then when I got done, I wanted to be a Texas Ranger, and what it would take for me to make it through that good old boy system was not something I was willing to do. And I had an agent in Houston just for fun, because why not? And she said to me, she's like, look, I don't say this to many of my clients, but you're one of the few people that could probably make it in Hollywood. So if you're looking for an out, go. Packed up all my shit in a U-Haul, put my car on a trailer, and I drove out to LA, rented an apartment out of the LA Times, sight unseen. Moved in with two people I had met in one workshop once. One was a cop of many, many years from Long Island, which he taught me how to say, because not Long Island. And then the other guy was this amazing little comedic actor, 5 feet tall. We were like the same height, and Bill, and he was moving out as well. And so the three of us, the cop, the jester, and the Jew, all moved into an apartment in Sherman Oaks. That was a threes company like nobody's business. I'm still stripping. The Robert is trying desperately to protect me every way that he possibly can.
The cop.
Yeah, the cop. And he came out to Hollywood to write cop stories. And he had some great cop stories. I have a degree in criminal justice. He's what I study. And so it was wonderful knowing him. And he did become a police writer on a show. I don't remember which one. And then he wrote a play. And then he went back to New York, and it got produced in New York. And he's doing great. And Bill and I stayed great friends. We even roommated at another place. And then ultimately he moved back to Rhode Island. And he's got an amazing life and wife and kids. But yeah, I moved out there. I didn't know either one of these guys. I'm moving into an apartment in an area I don't know anything about. I did call the police department, gave them the address, what's the crime rates for the area.
Yeah, I do that every time I rent a place.
Yeah, I do that every single time.
It's smart.
And then, although now we can just go on the internet
That's
and look
what I'm saying, yeah.
And then I was there for a while, and then hopped around in various places in LA, and I've been here since June of 1996.
I almost want to have you back for the second half of your life.
Sure. And then what's coming next?
That's what I'm saying. You leave when?
February 11th.
Can I get you back?
Yeah.
Because I think this would be a great two-parter.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll come back.
I'd love to stop here. But part more. 2, there's so much coming for you. You're a fascinating woman.
Thank you.
I mean, wow. Just wow. And what you've been through and where you're heading. And you've told me about, and I'm just going to give a little... the what you're planning on doing, I think is incredible. I think it's going to be huge.
Thank you.
I really do. And I think it's so needed. So I'm excited about it. And I would love to cover that too.
Yeah.
But I'm also fascinated by the Burning Man community.
I'm happy to tell you. That's just 13, 14, 15 years of my life.
Yeah. And just really quickly say what say what the title of what you were there.
Okay.
Yeah.
According to Burning Man, I was regional contact for Los Angeles. So I was the Burning Man ambassador to Los Angeles. And my duties were to foster the Burning Man community in Los Angeles and build it. And I did that by producing events, producing art, producing educational projects year-round.
And let people know, some people might not know what Burning Man is. Burning Man
is one of the greatest social experiments in the world, and I highly recommend everyone just do a YouTube search for Burning Man. You'll see tons of videos. Videos are the best way to get an idea of the art of Burning Man. You can look at images too, but The videos are better.
Just really quick, too, tell everybody how to find you in the interim.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to do a transition, and
let's keep the website isn't up yet, right?
No, not till the end of this month.
Let's keep that for the next.
So right now, go to Instagram, and you can find me at Athena.Demos, Athena. .demos, and my actor site is athenademos.tv, and those are the best places where you can find me on Instagram. And go ahead and go to my Instagram and join it. There's a ton of photos up there.
Beautiful photo. You're a really extraordinary photographer as well.
Thank you.
It's like, what else do you? I mean, it's great.
And every Tuesday, almost every Tuesday, I try every Tuesday, I will publish a photo of my glorious bottom, and it's called Tushy Tuesday. If you search Tushy Tuesday on Instagram, you won't find anything. I have been informed by Instagram that they've disconnected me from my hashtag. They can't take my photos down because I'm not violating their community standards, but I think they just want to, I don't know. I just don't know. But go directly to my site, and there are some beautiful photos of my ass. And on my website, when I launch it, it'll be much easier to find them because I'll have a Tushy page.
Yeah, we'll get to all that for part 2. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And we'll make a plan for the next part 2. And everybody, thank you for listening. And take care of each other. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of Athena's episode 196. And part 2 is already up. And you can go check that one out immediately if you are so inclined. Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.